Okay, let's go to the next question, the next part of this question. By the way, this is the November 28 paper. It says, Reggie works part-time as a waiter at a local restaurant. The amount of money he made in tips over a 15-day period is given in this table below. So these are the tips. On day 1 he made 35, day 2 70, day 3 75, and so forth. You can see the 15 is, there's 5 per row, so there's 15 data items. I'm just going to write this as N. The number of data items is 15. Okay, now they ask us to calculate the mean of the data. Now folks, for that you need your calculator. So let's fetch our calculator. Let's set it up. I've set it up for stat, so I'm going to go in, shift stat, and I'm going to start typing in my data. Now let me just move this up a little bit. So I type in 35 in the first position, I press equal. Then 70, equal. 75, equal. Now folks, there's also an option where you can have your frequency in the second column. Then you do not have to type values more than once. You can just type their frequency. Okay, the next one is 90. Then we have 100. We have another 100. We have 105. I'm going to go as quick as I can. I just hope I don't make a mistake. Mbali will be watching for me and telling me if I'm punching in the wrong numbers. 110 is my next one. There's 2 of them. 115 is the next one. 120 is the one after that. And then the final number is 125. Okay, folks. Now here, I'm going to press all clear. Okay? Don't press delete. It will delete everything you've done. You press all clear. You go back into shift 1. And what am I looking for here? I'm looking for variance in the data. Okay, variance is measured. Variance is talking about spread. It's talking about central tendencies. So let's go and select number 4. Then you will see for the mean is X bar at the top. You press the 2 and then it shows 0. The mean isn't 0. Trust me, you've got to press equal. Okay, so there's our mean. We've calculated the mean for 2 marks. Took a bit of time, but it's there. So it's 94.6. I'm going to round it up, my green pen. The mean here is 94.67. And I'm going to make that approximately equal to, because I rounded it up. You saw it's 94.6 recurring. Okay, now folks, how did I calculate this? I found the sum of all the data items divided by the number of data points. The sum of those data items is 1420 divided by the number of data items. That's what the calculator did for me. Okay, you can, if you want to, work out the sum of all of that and divide it by 15. If that's going to be quicker for you to add all of these together and divide by 15, then do that. That gives you the mean. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, we go back. We now need our standard deviation. So we go back to our calculator. We all clear. We go back into the stat mode. We go back into number 4. And here number 3 tells you what your standard deviation is. Now, all I need to do is press equal. 22.691. So my standard deviation here is 22. Standard deviation, it's not really a delta, but the standard deviation as we calculated it is 22.691. So it's approximately equal to that. Let me just make that sign proper so you guys can see what it is. It's a little squiggle and an equal sign. It shows that I've rounded this correct to 2 decimals. Obviously, if they say at the beginning of your paper, round all answers to 1 decimal, then these answers will be different. They will be 94.7 and 22.7. So always read the instructions first. You don't want to lose the 1 mark of the 2 because you did not read an instruction at the beginning. Okay, so that takes care of the first part. The second part now says, Mary, who also works part-time as a waitress at the same restaurant, over the same 15-day period, Mary collected the same, let me just go a bit down here. Mary collected the same mean amount in tips. Now that was 1,420 Rand that she also collected in tips over the same 15-day period. Okay, but her standard deviation is 14. So I'm going to put an M here for the standard deviation for Mary. Remember the standard deviation for, what was his name, Jerry or Berry or something, for Reggie. Reggie was 22,69. Okay, so 22,69 was Reggie, and the amount of tips was the same. Now they're going to ask us most probably to interpret what does it mean in terms of the difference between the two, how fast they made their tips, how to interpret the standard deviation, they can ask us quite a few questions here. Let's see what they said. Using the available information, comment on the total number of tips that each collected. Okay, now we've got that. We don't need to comment. We know that that is 1,420. They told us so in the question. So if we read that properly, we would have seen the answer for that. Okay, now, using the information available, comment on the variation that each of them receive in daily tips over this period. Now, folks, the fact that Reggie had a bigger standard deviation means his tips varied more over time than what Mary's tips varied. So if we need to write that down, we can say that because Mary's standard deviation is smaller than the standard deviation for Reggie, it means that there is greater variation. Yeah, there is greater variation in the amount in tips that Reggie collects daily or per day than Mary. So the variation in tips is just bigger. Mary, more or less, her tips are stable. They might just change with a few rands here to the top and the bottom, but his changes enormously. Okay, so it's just talking about the variation. That is what the standard deviation is telling you in this particular question.